Sean Capri, and welcome to We the GamerCast. That publishes every single Monday at youtube.com/carpoolgaming and podcast services on every single planet of the solar system, which really only includes planet Earth, because I don't know, do you get podcasts on Venus? I don't think so. It's too damn hot. Just like on, I think, everywhere else, unless you're in San Francisco. What am I even talking about? Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for listening, for telling your mom, for telling your dad, for telling your friends about the show. That's the only way we grow. We don't have a marketing budget. I don't know how to do that. I don't know exactly. So you guys are the only ones. That's how this works. Thank you guys so much for being here. Oh my goodness gracious. I feel actually quite a bit better than last week. I'm just kind of like, let me just realize what just happened. I screamed at you and it felt pretty good. So that was better than last week. The sad excuse for an intro that was last week. Oh my gosh, you guys, we're back. And I have a wonderful conversation waiting for you on this episode, but I'm getting a little far ahead of myself because if you're new, here's the deal. Every week I have sweet hangs with strangers from the internet. And if you want to be on the show, it's easy. Just tweet at me at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. Now, I hit the record button and then I lost all my show notes. So where the hell are all my show notes? I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be talking about. I know I'm going to be thanking some people at patreon.com/carpoolgaming, but that is okay. I've got lots has happened, you guys. I've been busy performing surgery on my PC, and that is very cool. I've got a new graphics card. This is about as nerdy as it's going to get. Some of you guys are in for it, but I'm also curious if anybody isn't really into the PC gaming at all, or if like, do you ever find we talk about this a little bit on the podcast with Marcus and Ngachacha this week, like, you know, when you feel like you're in a safe space talking about nerdy stuff and things, like you kind of go all in. And sometimes I realize that I do that on this show, especially with nobody to stop me in the intro. I'm just gonna like, here's everything that's on my mind. So you could skip it if you like. You guys, it's pretty easy to tell where the actual conversation, where the interview happens. But yeah, here comes a bunch of nerdy stuff. I got a new graphics card in my computer, and I ripped out the power supply and I put in a new one, and it's all very exciting, you guys. I haven't been this excited about PC gaming since probably 1998. And what a journey it's been, but my monitor is here. My desk is all nice and clean. My computer can run Crysis, I think. And life is good, man. Life is actually, it's everything's going to be okay. And in the meantime, when I'm not working on whatever's happening in here or doing all the content and stuff, I was upstairs in our family room. I ripped off the baseboards. I painted the walls. I took the TV off and everything. And it looks awesome, and I am so stoked about it. I definitely did one of the dad moves where you look at what you did, you put your hands on your hips, and you go like, yeah, that looks pretty nice, and I'm very happy with it. But I am getting over whatever this cold thing was that you guys heard me. You heard me on this show especially. That was probably the worst one. And you slowly maybe heard me get a little bit better on the Nintendo Drive and on the Xbox Drive as the week has gone on. This is as good as I felt, as good as I have sounded, I think. And I think that's just the way that it goes. Like time heals all wounds. Time is helping me out here. And, but I am missing the gym, man. I haven't gone to the gym this whole time. I've been trying to prioritize rest, and that's good. But man, I got to get back at it. So I'm looking forward to that. And we're coming on into the end of the summer here, guys. So I gotta get back at it. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I want. I guess that's all I want to talk to you guys about this. I'm trying to figure out what game is next, but, stay to twitter.com/Sean Capri for more of that. That's a weird way to say follow me at Sean Capri. Everybody at Patreon, and I think Ngachacha was mentioning this either during the show or afterwards. Patreon.com/carpoolgaming is where you can go to support this show and many others, and many other content creators as well, by the way. It's not just me. We got that there, Ryan. We got that there, Kato and Court, of course. Patreon.com/carpoolgaming. And there is a ton of exclusive content for those $3 patrons and up. We did our Game of the Year watch. We did it with me, Ryan, and Matt and Garrett. And we talked about our favorite games so far this year. And that's up there ready for you. Donnie Reese and I are going to record Sweet Hangs on Sunday. So on the 24th. So that should be up fairly shortly after that. And if you want to know where you can get all that, if you're not already there, Patreon.com/carpoolgaming, just like the nearly 90 patrons. That is insane. I can't even believe we have 90 people who listen to any of this stuff. That's crazy. And I want to say a special thank you to our ultimate producers, Tony Baker from Quest for Pixels at youtube.com/Quest for Pixels, Dallas Ford, the co-host of The Blame Game. You can go to YouTube and get those guys to 100 subs. Emily O'Kelly, Trucker Sloth, Johnathan Brown with his album In My Element on Spotify and Apple Music, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. Lee, I've got to actually get you on because we got to start talking about Extra Life. We got to get people to Rome, New York. I know some of you are coming already. Skinny Matt, maybe one of those people, hosting Carpool Gaming Community Game Nights. Follow him at twitch.tv/SkinnyMattK. The other thing I wanted to say on that is in the Discord is the best way for you guys to find out when community game nights are happening. You can go into the roles channel or whatever, select your roles. That's the best way to be tagged whenever like stuff for this show or community game nights in particular. So you want to manage your roles, you guys can do it. Robby Bobby Miller at twitch.tv/Robby Bobby Miller. Thank you guys all so much. And if you're listening, please support all these ultimate producers. Our platinum producers, Brendan Myers, Marcus McCracken, Becky Rubin Navarro, and RJ Kern, and all of our gold members, Anna, Argo, Cecily Carrozza, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Foolish Fuji, Jose Jimenez, Marcus O'Neill, mostly Martinez, Ngachacha, the Snack Network, and Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots. And welcome back to the Muffin Man at their exclusive tier. And guess what? 2 of our gold members are my guests today. Ngachacha was originally scheduled for this time slot or whatever, and he's such a wonderful person. If you don't know him already, you're about to meet him, I guess, and he'll tell the story about how this became kind of an unusual We the GamerCast. You guys know me. It's usually one-on-one. Every now and then, there's 2 people on the other side of this conversation, and I feel like this was very nice. And we come up with a very cool idea that you guys are going to hear all about, that once these ideas get planted in this here old brain, they're going to happen, and they're going to enrich the community, and I'm very excited about it. But Ngachacha learned that Marcus was supposed to be on the show a couple weeks ago, and he just made it right, man. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So why don't we just go on into it? Here they are, my good friends, your good friends, Marcus O'Neill and Ngachacha. Chelsea and I chat on Google Hangouts, and she's the only one that I use that with. I don't know if you guys have this like with anybody in your lives where you have one specific style of chat with some people, like you go to Discord for some people, you have like text messages for other people, you have whatever else. Like, how did this happen? Like, is this this is way harder, man. I don't like it.
Some people are just unwilling to adopt, but I know what you mean. Like, it's WhatsApp for wife, some group of friends. My parents, it's only text. They will not touch anything else. It's only text. Yep, it's always text. And then with you guys, it's Discord. So yeah, it's a bit of a juggling
That's true. And I'm not even I can't even like point at anybody else because like who am I to say? Although I guess I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm going all over the place with all these other people. It would just be like, can we just get everybody on? What would you choose, Ngachacha? Like if it was like one thing, if you could get everybody on one thing, texting, what message app would you use?
If between the 3 that I'm using, I would go with Discord because the GIFs on WhatsApp, no good. They're non-existent. I think like, I can't use GIFs, and then people use stickers, and that's just not my jam. And then text, there's nothing in there.
I need a keyboard option. I text from like friends from university that use Signal.
Signal.
Do you know Signal? It's basically WhatsApp, but somebody was concerned about the security with WhatsApp or something, so they're like, this new Signal is WhatsApp. So like now I've got Signal on my phone, and we get random messages of this in this text chain with just this one group, right? It's the same way you get. Yeah,
I get some weird, like, I don't even know how they get you on WhatsApp. Some interesting messages on WhatsApp, like. I don't know what exactly they're trying to do. It's like the late night commercials coming directly to your phone. Like pick up the phone, call 1-900 kind of stuff.
I was talking to my boss about that. I was like, because on our work phones we get those lovely phone calls from duct cleaning, air duct cleaning. And I'm like, I don't know how you have my work phone number. But I said to my boss, I said, does this actually work on somebody? Like, have they actually successfully called and said, air duct cleaning? And someone's picked up and be like, you know what? Yeah, I do need air duct cleaning. Because I'm like, surely this doesn't work. Like, everybody hangs up on you, right?
No way. I actually feel like that's better than some of the other scams out there. That one... I can see myself going, you know what? It has been a while.
Sean's done it. Sean has been one of those guys.
Those guys never showed up. They never showed up to their thing. Remember when Groupon was a thing? Did you ever have those? And they had all those knockoff of Groupons. I don't even know if Groupon is still around.
My wife still uses Groupon every once in a while. Yep. Yeah, really? Absolutely, it's still here. Yeah.
What did they call those? It was like a crowd buying or something, and you get these crazy deals. And the reason I thought of it, like you said that, and I was like, I had, what are the carpet cleaning companies? They had all the carpet cleaning. You get them for whatever, half off or something, and they would never show up. They oversold all these deals, and they didn't know what to do with it. I remember just nothing drives me more crazy than that kind of stuff. Goodness gracious, Groupon's still around though, hey?
It's still around. I think we've used it a few times, and then. Even when you calculate it, like, I don't know, some of the deals I got, they didn't seem like a big deal. It maybe like $5 off. Like, I don't know.
What kind of stuff are you getting on Groupon?
Well, I'm not getting stuff. My wife is getting stuff. I think she got
just to be clear.
I think when she got a Groupon when my parents were visiting, and she and my mom went out to get their nails done or something like that. So
okay,
yeah.
Same thing.
And the funny thing is like I remember because we use, as we all probably did a little bit more frequently. At one point, we used these things, and you'd have to call ahead of time, or you'd have to let them know you're using the Groupon ahead of time. The people on the other end were like, "What are you talking about?" Like oftentimes they didn't even know that there was a Groupon thing, and then there's this whole ordeal, right, of like confirming with the manager that this is okay to do it at this price or something, and I don't know.
I want to go to Groupon right now. Like, what do they have here? They have like salons and Buffet Royale. Who was I talking to buffets about recently? And that's the one that I wanted to bring up. Buffet Royale. That's the first buffet I ever went to. Car cleanings, like details and stuff like that. Lots of salons. Yeah, lots of nails. Okay.
Still thriving.
I see what's happening here. Yeah. I remember it being a big deal back in the day, but I don't even know how it... Well, I guess you can look back to how we got here on the Groupon thing. How did we get here, though? Let's kick things... Like, how did we get both of you guys on the show? Where did this... Marcus, I have a feeling this wasn't your idea, though. I think Ngachacha went to you about this, because this is unusual for this show to have... Well, speaking of Groupons, we got a little group pod. I don't know.
No, that was excellent, Sean. No, it was... I was just listening to one of the episodes, and I heard you that Marcus's session got canceled, and I said, well, that's unfortunate. And I figured, we're going to meet up. Why not? Like, who doesn't want to spend more time with friends? So let's just bring everybody together.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be more fun this way.
Yeah. So I just got a message out of the blue last week or whatever. And he's like, basically just said what you said and said, do you want to come on? And I was like, well, I don't want to take, my concern was, this is Ngachacha's first time on the show. It is. So I didn't want to take away from his experience here.
You're adding to the experience, my friend.
And that's what he said. So
look at that.
Sure, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, Sean, that Marcus and I are meeting up again tomorrow morning for the Backtracker. So we're getting a lot of time together.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice. Have you been, Ngachacha, to every single one of the Backtrackers meetings?
I'm glad you've asked that, because I've been to every single one except for one. And the one that I missed is because I was at the hospital because my wife was giving birth. So every other time, that's a legit excuse. So every other time I've been there, even the one after my wife gave birth, I was like, there's no way I'm going to attend. But best wife ever is like, I know you want to go. We'll make it work.
Those are the ones forever, man. That's how you know you made a good choice. And I mean, at that point, probably is good to know that. Like, after the kids come into play, it's probably good to know that that's a good thing.
She's the best. So 2 weeks ago, I finally got the COVID after dodging it for 2 years. Yeah. So I've been isolating in the basement, and everybody in the Discord and my friends and my family like, oh, how are you feeling? Poor you. And I always have to respond back and say, you really don't need to feel bad for me. Like I'm isolating with my video games. It's my wife who has to take care of 2 kids. And I remember because she's giving me food, like I'm in prison,
like through a trap door or something.
Yeah, but it blew me away. I felt more horrible and more appreciative because she gave me the food and it was really well presented. Like it was like,
oh wow,
it was nice omelet, like nicely done with wrapped up a kiwi and like this nice croissant. And I'm thinking, if the roles were reversed, I'll feed you. But I don't care about presentation. Like, here's your food.
Seriously.
But she was like making sure like there's effort, and even dinner's like, here's lots of vegetables, like here's your vitamins. Again,
wow,
I would have given
nutrients.
the same thing, but it'd be like, just here, I got to take care of 2 kids.
Like better presentation than normal days, non-COVID days.
You got it.
Say
like
that?
It was exceptionally well presented. I was like blown away by it. So I'm very grateful for my wife for putting up with me as I was getting back pain from playing video games during isolation.
Isn't that something too, right? That's us getting a little bit older when we got to watch out for the video game injuries here.
Yeah.
Like hands getting a little cramped. Next, maybe we got to do our stretches a little bit. I feel like, and I'm glad that you guys are both on the show tonight and I get to chat with you both because you're both I feel like you're both very fit. You're very active. You seem to avoid injury and sickness more than me. I swear. I get like 3 weeks in, I'm like, I've rolled an ankle or I've caught a cold that's going to stick with me for like 3 weeks or something like that. Can we talk about this for a little bit? Like, how are you staying agile and like keeping your joints good? Like, tell me your secrets on this front, because if I wake up the wrong way, my neck is out and I'm out for like 10 days and it ruins everything.
Marcus, you have the background. Tell us.
Well, I have the background, but these last. So I've just gotten back to work after being on parental leave myself for the last since the end of January, and
God, that flew by. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Was it
so,
fast
like,
for you? Was it quick or yeah?
Yeah, it was. Well, fast in some respects, slower in others.
Yeah.
But my activity really took a plunge during the parental leave. So because even when the roles were reversed, when I was working and Lindsay was home, Lindsay has to leave. Like when she's at work, going to work, she has to leave a lot earlier than me. So I can't. It's harder for me to sneak out in the morning to get a run in or something like that. Particularly because I'm off, I'm getting up with the baby at overnight. So I wasn't particularly like keen to be getting up also at 6 a.m. I was probably getting up at 6 a.m. trying to calm the baby down. So, so my running really, I'm easing my way back into it. I'm kind of getting up to like three runs a week, which is 3 or 4 runs a week is pretty much what I do.
That's pretty good.
So I'm getting back into it, but it has been, probably some of my most inactive time in recent memory.
Only 3 runs a week. I don't know, man. If you can,
no, not the 3 runs a week is pretty standard for me.
Okay.
I went 2 months without going out at all. So and since the pandemic started, I haven't been back to the gym, and I don't have a home gym, so like I'm not doing anything beyond kind of like the cardio stuff, and it's I think it's probably helped me that I've have a bit of a base, but I think towards the end of that I've lost a lot of that, so I need to start building that back up.
What about recovery from that? Like if you're running 3 times a week, like are you jumping into an ice bath? Like I know we've got lots of snow here usually. Do you just jump into an igloo like just on the corner? Like what? Like I'm just wondering, I see some of these like extreme recovery regimens that some people go through, and I'm just like, is that really what it takes? Like am I supposed to wake up every morning, roll out of bed and do these like hip circles and these stretches and do like the shoulder crawls up the wall and everything? Like is that what it takes? Is that sometimes it feels like, because I'm not doing that, maybe that is what's missing for me. Maybe I have to be doing these cat crawl or cat cow stretches as soon as I wake up and before I go to bed and make sure I get loose and everything like that.
I would probably not. Honestly. Yeah.
No,
What are you gonna say? I sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, I agree. Like, I wouldn't say you have to do that when you wake up and when you go to bed, but getting to our age, like, coming up on 40, warming up before the workout is very useful. Something I didn't do quite a bit in my early 20s when I started hitting the weights. But as soon as I got to my 30s, I was like, oh, this is why everyone says you need to warm up and stretch before you get to the big weights, because now I got a neck injury. Now I got a back injury. And I think, at least for me, because everyone's experience is different, checking your ego at the door was probably one of the biggest things. Like, when you feel like something's off, like, you have to immediately stop. Not let me finish my set, or I'll just power through it, because like it just aggravates it and makes it worse. And it honestly just, for me, it would set me back like weeks. Yeah. Whereas when I finally did learn to check my ego, and I would stop immediately when something felt wrong, maybe like 2-3 days of rest, and then I'd be back at it like no problem. So I think warming up, and I think it just takes a lot of years of practice too. Like, it's not like, I'm not a big fan of those celebrity big changes, like with their weight loss, like getting ripped in like 6 months, and like, or gaining weight. Like, not only is that, kind of unrealistic, it's probably not healthy for an individual to drastically change their body that way. I think it's not a race to the finish, right? Like, it's a journey. It's about getting good at it, taking your time, getting knowledge, not just following bro science and advice from you.
Did you say bro science?
That's what it was called back in the day. Like, back in the 20s, like when before, like, I mean, the internet was there back then, but I don't think there was much as prevalent, like real, like research for it. So you would just listen to other people and be like, yeah, bro, you need to eat like 3 times as protein, or you need to do these kind of push-ups. And it's just like, okay, you look jacked, so I'm going to follow you. And it was just called bro science. So instead of following that, listen to people who know what they're talking about, do the research, and take your time, find your craft. Speaking of, our wives, Sean, I was mentioning to her, I was like, some people think, from this lovely Discord community that I'm kind of fit, and she literally did that Patrick Stewart meme, where like he's that one, like she literally did that, right? She's like, calm yourself down, like like you're not out of shape, but
damn,
no. But here's the funny thing about it, Sean and Marcus. Like, it's really funny because she'll tell me all the time, like, you're not ugly, but you're not good looking either. Yeah, no.
Okay, so like I was gonna ask you, like, what keeps you motivated to keep going, but it sounds like just like this, you can never achieve perfection, really. So you just keep on the journey and you keep striving towards it, I guess.
Well, it's two-prong, I would say, because she married me, so obviously there's some sort of attraction, and like I can tell, like it's genuine through personality. Like, she claims it's because you're such a dork. Like I'm totally into that. I don't know, man. Like I haven't met an individual like that dorky person. Like, that's my thing. Like, I don't know. I haven't met somebody like that. I think what she's attracted to is that, I'm pretty nerdy, but I think it's because I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah, man.
As opposed to like, oh, don't look at me as I'm playing video games. Let me talk about some sports or something. Like, it's just like, I'm playing, Night in the Woods. I'm coloring in Chicory, and like I'm having a blast. Check this out. So I think it's from that.
When did that like kind of settle in or lock in? Because you kind of alluded to maybe a period of time where it wasn't 100% like that. Like, I remember, like, when I got married, I felt like it was a victory for geeks across the world. I'm like, this is possible. Like, this is like, look, like she said yes. Like, this is a thing. Like, more of us, because I never thought that was the way it was supposed to go. You kind of defy the odds. So like, where did you kind of like settle in and go, okay, no, this is actually who I am. I don't have to like hide it, or I don't have to pretend or be anything else.
That, I'm curious to hear your guys' journeys as well, because I can tell you guys are unabashedly, very proud of who you are as well. So I'm kind of curious when the light switch went on for you guys. But for me, sadly, it was, I remember it very well. It was only when I turned 30. So that's like 7 years ago. So it kind of makes me a bit sad that, prior to that, I was struggling to find myself, or always trying to fit some sort of norm of like, well, I think this is cool. Let me try to be this way or be interested in those hobbies, even though I could care less about sports. But it was only when I turned 30, and it kind of happened at the same time as you're asking about what keeps me motivated to stay active and to work out. I think you get this too, Sean, like that feeling, and when you exercise, like it makes you feel really good about yourself, not just
totally does.
Mentally, spiritually, and for me, it's all about setting a goal, and like I'm actively getting towards it, whether it's like 1 step or 20 steps. I'm still progressing towards it, and that's what keeps me motivated. And when I started to work out properly and less bro science at that time, and I want to hear Marcus's thoughts on this too, because prior to my 30s, I was exercising, but I wasn't getting very good results. But when I turned 30, I dialed in my diet, and huge difference in terms of my performance and how I looked and how I felt. Like once I started paying attention to what I eat, it made a huge difference. So I would say 30 years, once I turned 30, switched the diet, dialed in my nutrition and my workouts, just started feeling better about myself and just being happy with who I am. And you know what? Maybe it's something about turning old and just saying like, you know what? If you don't like me, that's too bad for you, because I'm just going to be happy with myself. Like time is short.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely get outside of, like when you're in high school and maybe even in college to a certain extent, like you're just surrounded by people all the time. And I guess you get that to a certain extent at work, but you really come to realize with almost like every graduation of elementary school to junior high or middle school or whatever to high school, like you spend time less and less with the exact same people, like you have your homeroom back in early days. And as life goes on, you kind of get, I don't know, like exposed to fewer and fewer people every single day of the week, and you come to realize like it really is just up to you to kind of figure this out. And that rings true for me. But Marcus, I'm not sure how this kind of hits you at all.
Well, it's funny that Ngachacha thinks that I'm like this unabashed nerd because I feel like I know that I've heard you, Sean, talk about this as well. Is I very much have in my life like these silos where I fit in different situations. And it was really interesting. Like we had some good friends visit us over the last weekend. Hadn't seen them they live in Halifax now. So they were doing a big Western Canada road trip.
Tour.
And,
nice.
Yeah. And so they popped in for a few days but like good friend and I went to university with these people. I went to high school with my one friend, and he married a friend of mine from university. So like we're very close. Everybody's tight. I showed him this room and he had no idea. Like this is my game kind of office room with all my games, and we were talking a little bit about it, but he didn't have any idea, right? And so like I very much like when I talked to him in the past, we're going out to the bars, we're drinking, we're talking sports. We played hockey together, that sort of stuff. So those were, the topic of conversation. It was never video games, as an example. Mm-hmm. People like that I work with, I never talk video games with. I don't talk that nerd stuff. Yeah, lots of like the only person that knows that whole me is my wife. Yeah, really. Oh. Yeah, really. And and so like that I think that in everywhere else, even like my family, like my brother or my parents don't know like the extent of, I think, this hobby that I have. Mm-hmm. No way. And it's very siloed off. Like I have different versions of me depending on who I'm interacting with. 100%.
Does that surprise you, Ngachacha, that you're like, oh wow, like what's that?
I'm just surprised because, we're in this community because we're so passionate about it.
Yeah.
You're doing such an excellent job at not overburdening people with this information, because it would probably be overwhelming for them. So I'm just surprised. Yeah.
It's funny you should say overburdening, because my parents are asking me what I want to do for my birthday, which is next week. And I was kind of messaging to them. I was sitting at my computer here and I've just kind of redone my PC and everything. It's bringing me back. Like I'm thinking about like the good old days when I was, 13, 14 years old, playing some of my favorite games that will be with me for the rest of my life. And my mom was asking like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I really just want to Like I want to be like Thanos. I want to just like sit and like stare at like a sunset and just be like, I just need to rest. I want to play the video games that I love the most. I want to watch a movie that I love the most. And that's what I want to do. But at the same time, I want to share that with other people, you know? So as time is going on, I've definitely spent most of my time and most of my adult years actually kind of going like, okay, well, I will silo myself off. I don't need to burden other people about this. I know that they don't give a rip about this kind of stuff. But recently it's come to light for me of, I want like my parents to know why I called Ellie Ellie. Like I want them to know The Last of Us so badly. And so my mom's asked me like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want you to sit on a couch for 9 hours where I can get through a good portion of The Last of Us and you just watch it. And at the very least, like maybe my brother will come along and because he hasn't played it and I want him to know all this stuff. And it's such a central part to, I think, all three of us that you would want to maybe do something like that. I'm being extreme. I don't even know why. I think not even on purpose, just this is what I was thinking about. But like you want to share it with people, but it's kind of like, are you good with this? Because this is a rabbit hole, man. Like we're gonna go deep on this thing.
No, man, I say you go for it. Like, you know, families care about us.
I'm telling my mom.
Yes.
You're sitting on a couch, get comfy, you're not going anywhere, no phones, you're gonna see the beginning of this this game and hopefully you like it, man.
Go for it. Go. Like I said, time is short. Make yourself happy. My birthday is next week as well. So
yes, birth week.
Yeah, man. So my wife, and she already knows, she kind of already knows, like, you don't want me to plan something. So what do you actually want to do? I'm like, I want to play video games in the morning and then let's just go out for lunch and that's it. Nothing else. You know what I do is, you know, because the parents still want to spend time with us. I kind of pivot that towards like my son's birthday and my other son's birthday. Yeah. So then those are the kind of things where we kind of get to hang out. But for my day, you know, my birthday is just like, leave me alone and let me play games just for a little bit. And just like you, just sit down and just have a moment to myself. And I remember sharing this passion with my dad because he did see my gaming room. He's like, this is a lot of stuff. And I said, and I was like, and I had to ask him because, you know, back then I was like, you know, you're the one that bought the Nintendo system.
There it is.
I'm kind of curious, like, what was your thought process getting that at that time? Because back then too, a lot of people were like, this is a waste of money. You know, video games are horrible for people. Like, what did you jump in for that? And his opinion of it was, video games make you smarter. That was his honest opinion of it.
That's very evolved. That's holy crap. Nobody like that's what I've come to realize years later. But why did he think that? How did he see that so quickly?
The first game that he was exposed to, which I enjoy, but I'm not like obsessed with it, was Tetris. Yeah, and I think he played it at his brother's house, and he was like, this requires a lot of quick thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking. And so he was like, here's a Nintendo system. And that's why he got it. Obviously, he did not predict how long this hobby would extend itself. But he's just like, you know, you're happy with it. And, you know, he's like, I still think video games do make people smarter. You know, activates a different part of the brain, creative process, quick reflexes, critical thinking, perseverance. I was like, you saw this well before the research was there, just so you know.
No kidding. The one thing you said, Ngachacha, I'm curious, Marcus, on your thoughts on that too, like the perseverance side of it for video games. Like, is that something that you see, and is it changing as time has gone on? I think we've all seen games swing a little bit back and forth on really, really difficult in the NES days. They got a little handholdy for a little while, and maybe now we're starting to see a blend of it. Like, is that part of the experience for gaming for you and for kids as well?
Me? Not really. Yeah. No, I kind of hate that sort of stuff. I don't have time to bang my head around on you know, I don't have time for that. But
you get it from somewhere. Like you get some sort of resilience from somewhere.
Sure.
Like
so you're talking about where I may have developed these types of skills.
Well, I think
when did it come from video games?
That's where I'm going to end up my question, actually. But yeah, no, I was kind of just like originally really honed in on the fact that video games, especially back in the day, caused you to practice, and whether you realized it or not, you were realizing like that sticking with something can help you get good at it, and that there's a benefit to it later. But now that we're old men, I'm kind of with you. Like, put it on baby mode, easy mode, like get me through this thing. But I'm torn on it, and your son is a little younger than my kids, but I see my kids with some games, and I see Lincoln go, "Oh, this one is hard. I'm gonna skip off of this," and I'm like, "That's not." Yeah. I want you to stay with it, like, because it is so easy. There's so many games to go to. If something is hard for him, he's not going to stick with it. He's going to stick with it for other reasons. So I'm not sure if that mixture of and the swing of how hard games are and how many there are and how accessible they are, if what was true for Ngachacha back in the day still holds true for kids now.
But I might push back a little bit, like maybe it's my experience, but like how many games I didn't have it as nearly as many games as I do now, but I had, access to a decent amount, whether they were mine or whether they were friends. How many games of those from the NES era were you finishing? Because I certainly wasn't finishing very many. So how much perseverance was I doing? I would get so frustrated that I didn't know what to do or how to, or even if I knew what to do, that I couldn't do it, and I would just drop the game. So I mean, I don't know that it's probably, I think, and maybe I don't want to derail this whole conversation back to nutrition, but I think that like there's a lot of people when it comes to health and fitness and stuff that say people are just lazy today, and that they were they had more willpower, or they were made out of different stuff back in the day. Yeah, and I don't buy that at all. I think that certainly our environments are different, but people are people, and I think that. So I think that maybe translates a little bit to the games. I don't think that we were necessarily we had more perseverance when we were kids. It may be out of necessity to a certain extent because we didn't have as many options, but I don't think we were any better than the kids today.
There is so much to unpack here too. Okay, so bring me back to, so if it wasn't from video games, like where did the resiliency come from for you? Like, how do you stick with it, whatever it is? If it's like, I think the last time you were on, we were talking a little bit about, you're just very even keeled. You don't go too high, you don't go too low. You're just like taking things one step at a time, one day at a time. Is that kind of where the resilience is tied to, or is there something else to the equation there?
It's a good question. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but I definitely know that for me, if I say I'm going to do something, for me, it's very important that I do it. And sometimes that's to my detriment, and that I don't drop off something when there's no real point in finishing something, that just because
the only reason you're doing it because you said it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that is very much something that is, key to my personality, for better or for worse. So I don't know if that's just genetics, or maybe that was something, because I don't remember necessarily my mom or my dad always like, you signed up for this, you did this, you have to finish it. I don't specifically remember it being that way. So maybe it's just who I am as an individual. I don't know. Or I learned it somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but that is very much core to who I am. That is a big core of who I am, is if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
I feel like maybe this is, I don't want to speak too much on like, we all three agree on this sort of thing, but there becomes a time in our lives, I think, where you start to realize the parts of your personality that like make up who you are. And for me, over the last couple of years of doing this sort of stuff, I've come to realize that this is part of who I am. It's not just like what I like to do. It's not like just a hobby, but it's actually like part of, I don't know what else to call it other than like, it's part of my identity. And I feel like it's something different than my identity. That sounds more like external, but it's more about like my core. I don't know, Ngachacha, if you've ever broken it down in this way, like if you've thought about like how you talk about your own personality, like what comprises your personality.
Honestly, Sean, like when you're mentioning about Lincoln, not persevering in certain games, my son's the exact same way. And, my oldest is 7. So being a dad these 7 years, like it's been really eye opening, man. Like for every year, every time I'm always learning something new. Cause in in my mind, when he was really young, I was like, I'm a dad that likes video games. He's going to be so happy to like video games. We're going to play them together. He doesn't like them. Like I've told the community, I've told some friends at the Backtrackers, like my son's a backseat gamer. Like he might play a little bit, and I think when he plays, I think he does it for me. Whereas when he does backseat gaming, he's genuinely into it, man. Like he's like, go over there. You forgot to do this. Get him. Oh no. Like he's so into it. But when we're playing, like he gets really frustrated really quickly. Like he's just not into it. And I think it's like what Marcus was saying. Like it's not like, Marcus's parents taught him to be resilient and persevere. It's not like I taught my son to like, yeah, you should give up on this video game. Like I think it's just who you are and just part of your personality. And I think one of the biggest things as being a dad I'm trying to grasp and understand is how in the beginning, how I was as a dad, in terms of like how I'm going to be supporting him and, disciplining him. That idea in my head, that's what I wanted from my dad. That doesn't mean that Ethan wants that from me, because he's not me. Even though they're like, Ethan looks like you, but he's not me. He's not this. He doesn't have the same personality. He doesn't have the same needs. So I have to, in my opinion, I have to adjust my support system to suit his needs, because whatever I'm expecting, that's kind of what I wanted from my dad, whether I got it or not. But more importantly, what does my son need from me? And I'm not saying I do it every single day, but I'm actively trying to do that more, as opposed to in the beginning when he was much younger. I was like, I'm going to be like this. This is the best way to be the best dad ever. And I was realizing, I was like, this isn't working at all. Like he doesn't seem happy. I don't seem very happy.
If for no other reason, I'm so happy you invited me onto this conversation so that I could hear that, because this is like in my mind. So I obviously, my son is younger than your two oldest, right? So, and I have these things that I wanted from my dad. Like my dad would never come out and play basketball with me. Never. And I had this thing. I always would ask him. He would never come outside. The most I could ever get is maybe he'd toss the ball, like we play catch for a little bit. That was it. And I was into every sport, road hockey, anything. He would not do anything with me. And I always
was he athletic?
Say,
like would he play like go do stuff somewhere? Oh,
well,
okay.
He took it. So maybe I'm selling him short. We did go golfing. So he introduced me to golf and we golfed. But no, he's not a super athletic guy. But I mean, I was a kid who you don't have to be super athletic, whatever. I mean, but anyway, so this has always been in my, when I have a kid, I am going to do any sport that he like sports that I wanted to do, I'm going to do with him. And I like the way that you phrased that and kind of positioned it, that may not be what Miles actually wants. And it's important to actually kind of take that into account and not just kind of correct the wrongs that happened to you, or that you felt happened to you.
And even like, for me, sometimes I look like Lincoln will come up to me and say like, do you want to play tablet with me? And I hopefully I've caught this like quickly enough, but for a little while there, like I definitely looked at the tablet as like, I mean, that's a kid's thing. I don't love that he has it, but like he seems to have fun with it and all these other things. But I was definitely marginalizing its importance to him in many, many ways. So he would ask me like, do you want to play this with me? And I say like, I really don't. Like if he's asked me the question, do you want to play? No, I don't want to play that game. But I realized he kept asking me like a couple times over and over. And then I'm like, oh, this is like him asking me to go play basketball outside or to go like shoot whatever. And so like I found myself starting to say yes every single time, because whether I like the tablet or not, or whether I think the game is interesting or whatever, like doesn't matter. I want my parents to sit down and watch The Last of Us for 9 hours. And like, so it's different, but the same, all at the same time. He wants to do stuff with me. And it's like, well, that's awesome, because Ellie doesn't want to do any stuff with me. So like I'll take Lincoln up on it, man. This is awesome.
No, it's it's been quite a journey, still learning something every single day. And I'll admit it on this podcast. God of War, it's a 2018.
Yeah, man.
I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Oh,
and the reason for that is because, I kind of had an idea what the game was going to be about, and I was like, this is going to crush me. This is going to be great. I hurt me like The Last of Us, hurt me like Nier Automata. Let's go. Because I was under the impression that this was going to remind me of the relationship I had with my father, because my father's an immigrant, learning to adapt in Canada.
Interesting.
I was born here. That's not who I saw when I played the game. When I played the game, I was like, I'm Kratos and Ethan is Atreus. Like the way, especially back then when he was much younger and I was trying to do things a certain way, I was like, I feel like he looks at me the way Atreus looks at Kratos, where like we're trying to make this connection, but there's some sort of disconnect for some reason. So I think it impacted me in a very negative way and a little bit too close to home. I'm still going to play Ragnarok, but like the wounds are a bit fresh. Let's put it that way.
So was there like, that is so interesting. Like even after you came to kind of realize, and it seems like you've made a change. Was this before or after kind of like the change has happened? I want to dive into that a little bit more too.
This was before. So I think Ethan must have been at that time around like 3 or 4-ish.
Yeah.
And in all sincerity, like I'm very grateful that my son is like super close with my wife. Like, so tonight so she went out for dinner with a friend, and I was driving Ethan home, and he looked at me and he's like, when mom's not home, I really miss her. And I was like, well, you should tell her that when we get home. So he gets home and he starts bawling. Like, he's like, I'm really going to miss you tonight. And I'm like, this is frigging awesome that like he has this special person in his life that he cares about so deeply. Cause I hate to admit it. Like, I don't feel that way about my parents, and maybe that makes me a bad son, but it's just, it's incredible that he feels that way about her. So, I see that relationship that they have. And like I said, I'm very grateful that they have it, but it makes me reflect on like, what am I not doing to give Ethan the needs that he has? So it's always kind of in the back of my mind. But yeah, 2018 God of War, I was, again, very shocking because I was so certain this would remind me of my childhood, and it didn't. It reminded me of my present situation and the struggles that I'm having as a father, but actively trying every single day to be better and to make that difference. And yeah, go ahead.
I want to explore that a little bit too, about you kind of had like maybe a perfect picture in your mind about what it was going to mean for you to be a dad or what you were going to do. Was it a gradual realization that like maybe you weren't like living up to that impossible scenario, or was it a kind of like a sharp moment? Like for me, it was gradual until it like really crushed me. And part of it was Chelsea just embraced it right from day one. Like she was a mom from the moment like it all happened, and just like stepped up to every single challenge. She continues to do that. And like I found myself struggling to keep up with that, and then struggling to keep up with like, okay, well, how do I fit into this? So there was definitely a bit of a pretty significant kind of set of scenarios that happened when Lincoln was about 5-6 months old. I'm like, this is not going well for me. So if you're willing to talk about it, like, I'm curious, how did it manifest this realization that you weren't up to the standard that you had set for yourself?
It was, I would say it was gradual. Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden some switch happened. It was little things. Cause and when you say like these impossible standards, like, so again, in my mind, like, I'm going to be the best dad ever, because I know what my dad did and what he didn't do. And I know who I am. And like, he's going to be so happy that I'm into superheroes and Star Wars and things like that. So when you say impossible, I guess I did set up to be impossible, because what I learned is, again, Ethan might not, he doesn't care about Star Wars. He doesn't care about superheroes. He likes Lego. So it was slowly realizing that, like, as we're watching, Superman stuff, as we're doing a little bit of video games, he was like, meh. And I was like, oh, something, he's not really into this stuff. And then, like, kind of like what you said, Sean, like, he'd be like, let's watch this Lego thing. I'm like, Lego's not really my jam, but
I don't want to.
I don't want to. And he would be like, let's come outside and play. Now you're making me feel like Marcus is dad, because he's like, let's play outside. And I'm like, I hate sports. I don't want to go outside. So it was little things like that. And then I was just like, I have to stop, again, holding this expectation of like, I'm going to be the dad that I want. And I really need to start doing things. So now I'm outside. I don't like the sports, but I'm out there because it makes him so happy. And I can and I can see it when I'm out there with him. Like he's quite happy doing those kind of things. So it was a gradual thing. It was a bit of a shock. I hope we're not scaring you, Marcus, in terms of like.
This is really valuable. Actually, you guys are passing on the wisdom. I'm the elder statesman of the group here today, but you guys are passing on this incredible wisdom because you both have kids that are a little bit older than mine. So,
well, I was curious, Marcus, for you, like how I feel like you're on a unique journey as well, with Miles as well, and like. As far as where you saw yourself as a dad, like I don't even know if it's even possible to compare like where you thought you would be, like everything is just so different. So I don't know how that resonates with you, or do you even see it as different to anything else? Like you're just so good at being like day to day, taking it a day at a time. Whatever challenge is next, you just seem to take it on. But I'm curious where your mindset is.
Well, maybe I put on a good show. It's tough for sure. Like I feel like, it's probably not that uncommon, but Lindsay and I, talk about it and we feel like on regular basis, we're failing him in some regard, right? Because, there's things that we'd like to be able to do that we just either don't have the energy to, or that we don't know how, or that we don't have time. Because we're so busy with other stuff with him. So it, at the end of the day, we're muddling through and trying to get through it the best we can. And I think we're doing, if we take a step back, I think we're doing a pretty decent job. But there's definitely those moments where it's like, oh man, I wish we could be doing this. I wish we could be doing that. So the perspectives that you guys are giving today are really, really useful. Yeah, really valuable.
Well, and I think maybe the through line, regardless of the situation, is like, where do you find your encouragement from, right? Like sometimes if it's just you and just in your own household and you and your family and there's struggles of whatever they are, like where do you find like somebody to tell you you're doing the best you can, you're doing a good job, like stop feeling like you're dropping the ball or failing someone or failing yourself. Like it's so rare for like, I'm asking the question, like, I don't know where that comes from. Like, it's actually a little bit sad. Like somebody should be saying that to us. Like, but we have to, I don't know, like dig down deep and figure it out. I don't know, Marcus, like, is it,
well, I mean, I think for us, it's a weird situation. It's a unique situation because Miles is kind of complex medical stuff. So it's people that are always telling us, you guys are doing an amazing job. Yeah, and we're sitting here thinking like, I don't know, man, you don't see everything. And we feel like we're dropping the ball, in this or that or whatever. Right. But we're getting a lot of external validation. Good. So, which is not probably as typical because of our unique situation. But it's kind of like, well, we were always like, are you sure you don't know it all? Like you don't know where we're, so like, we're kind of like pushing back on them telling us that we're doing so amazing. So yeah.
Is that a Canadian thing? Do you think? I don't know where that comes from, but there's definitely like a disbelief when people give praise and encouragement and that kind of thing. But I don't know, and people, I'll take it to actually this show rather than even parenting. I remember people like Mark Carabin, who was on last week. He was one of the first to kind of reach out kind of externally without really prompting. And he kind of reached out way early back in the day of We the GamerCast. And he reached out and he said like, hey man, you're like, that show is like really good. Like keep it going. And I didn't believe it. Like maybe to your point, like I just didn't buy it. I'm like, I don't know why I don't believe it. And then more and more positive comments would come in. And I didn't believe any of them until one day I don't know what it was. I was out for a walk or something and I realized these people don't have to do that. Like they don't owe me anything and they're not getting anything out of it. Like, why do I have such a disbelief for people going completely out of their way to let me know that they enjoy the show? And I still like, especially when it's like face to face, I still get like kind of like stop it. But I have like that's been something that I've really tried to work on personally is like yeah, I if somebody is saying something just to be nice, like I'll let them do that. But for the most part, like I will start to take encouragement and positive comments like that as what they are. So hopefully that lands with you a little bit. I don't know, because like people don't really have to. Everybody has a billion things that they could be doing, and yeah, like I don't know. I'll say just for me, I don't know how you're doing, staying on top of everything. Miles is so lucky to have you guys as parents. Like out of anybody who he could have ended up with, he ended up with the perfect set of parents, and I'm just like so impressed, man. Like it's just there's so much. So for whatever that's worth.
But you don't know all the stuff, Sean. You don't know it all.
And that's So
I appreciate it.
I'll flip it. I don't know all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still impressed, and I'm still in awe of staying on top of it all, man. Like, and you still stay as a positive person. You're still doing the backtrackers. You're still active. You're still doing all the things. It is remarkable. And I will also say that even if you weren't doing all those things, I wouldn't think less of you. I wouldn't think like, oh, well, what, man, he's really like falling apart. Like that's not what makes you. And like for whatever it's worth, I just wanted to let you know that because I really feel that.
Well, thanks, man.
100%.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I think there's a very thin line between staying humble to keep yourself motivated to always improve and self-reflecting, but it's so easy to cross that line of what you're talking about, Sean, of crossing over too far and become self-defeating.
Yes.
And then you actually make things worse. But it's also easy to cross that line of becoming arrogant when you're too happy with what you're doing and then you fall off and start becoming lazy. I think it's a very, very razor thin margin of like staying in that perfect line where
I agree.
You're still humble to work hard, but you're not self-defeating and making yourself feel like crap and not crossing over to like, well, I'm going to take it easy now and start coasting because I've done it all. It's not an easy thing. I think many of us kind of hop back and forth between a lot of those areas, and it's quite the juggling act, but
how do you... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think when you were talking about like, what keeps us grounded in terms of moving forward despite all the struggles, and I think it's important to always have other perspectives. Like I think, talking to you guys, talking to coworkers and just hearing their life experiences, and when you kind of get to know them well enough where they start to divulge, not just everything's perfect and sunshine, when they start talking about their struggles, I think that's when you kind of realize like, oh, I'm not alone. And there's other people going through these things, and there's also people succeeding, or I'm succeeding as well. And, I mentioned this to Marcus, and I think I mentioned this to you, Sean, but like, I became a huge fan of the We the GamerCast, and, a big friend of Marcus because of that episode you guys did about him going through the IVF process, because that's what I was going through with my wife for our second kid. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, other people do this. Like there's science for it. Like my wife's waiting in line. Like there's other people doing this. Yeah. But for some reason, I'm like, it's just me. It's just us. And for some reason, just hearing it from Marcus's perspective was just some sort of cathartic experience where like, oh my God, somebody else is going through this and he made it. Like they made it work. They're still happy. Look at where he's at now. He has a family. Like it works. It all works out, which is something that somebody taught me when I was in my early 20s. And because, just finished school, trying to find a job. I'm like, am I going to have enough money to, propose to somebody and make it? And I remember he just kept saying, trust me, man, it all works out. And I'm like, that's not enough to go on. And he's like, trust me.
And he's like, something a little more tangible than that, man. Come on. What do you got? You got something better? Like just, it'll be better. Like that's
it's just like, it all works out.
It all works out. Yeah, you're right about that, man. Like the notion of things that are so common, but nobody talks about will be my top 5 frustrations until the day that I die. Like, how are some of these things that happen to every person we're so quiet about it? That is just ridiculous. And, I don't want to go down too much of a political slant here, but the thing that we are all talking about is politics. Like that's what we're all screaming about. Wouldn't it be so much better to be like sharing experiences, and even not even that it has to be anything tragic, but I think about things that happen every day. babies are born every day. People are getting married every day. Like big life moments happen all the time. And they are huge for the people who it's happening to. And for everybody else, they go, now this happens all the time. And that is so incongruent in my mind. It frustrates me to no end that just because, babies are born all the time, people get married all the time. Like, why does that lessen our intensity about talking about it or realizing its impact on this person? I see it in the workplace when people go on parental leave. And it's like, well, that's a big deal for that person. And for anybody else external to it, it's just paperwork. And it's just like, I got to get this person covered. Or this person's getting married. Oh, I got to go to another wedding. It's like, the difference is too much for me to handle. And I don't like it, man. And so that's where these open conversations really come from. Not that I really ever set out to have them, but it's just like, well, if we're going to sit down and chat for an hour, it's going to come out like eventually after a few of these things. So I've been really appreciative that guys like you and people like you guys like come on in and are as willing to participate in that openness as well. Like people know what they're signing up for, I would say, for the most part. When they come on to We the GamerCast, I think like there's some evidence here of what we do around here. I
think like time's precious. Like I'm just going to go for it and just tell you how I think and how I feel. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But what I gain from it is, I might have made a closer relationship or a friend. I feel like there's always more to gain when you kind of just go for it. But it's funny how you mentioned how, there are certain things people don't talk to about certain things. Sometimes I feel like it's just the way society's set up, man. Like it's really bonkers. Like, again, I remember, so when I was 30 and I made the switch to dialing in my diet, people would comment at work and be like, why do you keep eating that? And they were saying it like in this judgmental, critical way. Like, why do you keep eating that? And I would be like, number one, I want to. And number two, the food I'm eating is good for me. And you're kind of mocking me.
You should be asking them.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Number three, like, would you mind your own business?
That would be nice too. But do you know what I mean? Like other people, they're bringing in like Popeyes and stuff. I'm not saying anything. You do you. But if we're going to break it down to like objectiveness, that Popeyes is bad for you. My chicken and rice and spinach is good for me. Yet you're judging me for eating this. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not as bad as it sounds.
No, I'm not joking. I think that sounds amazing. And I'm a simple person. I could eat that every single day. I don't need variety in my diet. Like that's something I've come to realize, but I don't know why I can't get things sorted out. But you're right. Like, why do this has been something I've realized even since I was young, like grade 7, grade 8 kind of thing. Like, why are you trying to get good grades is what I would get back in those days.
Oh, really?
It wasn't. Oh, definitely. Like, yeah, it was dorky to get good grades. Like it was much cooler to not try.
Fail.
Like, right. Like, and it makes no sense, but you're 12, 13, 14 years old. Like very impressionable. That resonates with me big time, man. Why are we pulling everybody else down who are trying to achieve something? Why don't we do the exact opposite? It doesn't cost anything. And
that's how I feel about video games when I kind of present and start talking about it, because people kind of give me a funny look of like, you're kind of old for video games. And I'm like, well, that's just a hobby that I like, let's not start judging, because if I really want, I can flip it to like, well, how much time are you spending on TikTok? How much time are you watching, these trashy reality shows? I don't care. Like if it makes you happy, you do you. But yet for some reason, I'm doing video games, which research shows makes you smarter and promotes creativity. It's actually kind of good for you. But you're making it sound like I'm wasting my time and money on it.
Man.
I'm just like, dude, like video games are awesome. Like it's a beautiful art form. It brings this community together. Like I've told Marcus this like a million times. Like the Backtrackers is really special to me. Like there's something so cool about playing the same game and talking about it at the same time. Because usually what happens is we'll play the games at different times, right? Like, and then I'll bring it up. Like Horizon Forbidden West, like I just played it now, and
you're out of the conversation, man. You totally missed it. Why are you playing it now?
I'm messaging my friends, and I get like 2-word responses, like, "Oh, good for you." It's like they don't care. But when I'm with the backtrackers and, we're showing our pictures from Chicory, we're sharing these articles, like everybody's so active. So there's something special about playing it together and talking about it together. Like I love it. Like that's why I go every single time my wife lets me go.
Yeah, no, it's nice to hear that. I mean, I think I obviously I feel the same way to be able to like play these games together. It's there's something special about that, just that the idea of being able to experience that thing together. That are not these aren't multiplayer experiences. These are single player things that we're usually just doing by ourselves, which we enjoy. But it's nice to be able to share it with people that actually are as passionate about it as we are, because I share it with my wife and she humors me, but that's she doesn't really care that much. So it's nice to have a bit of an outlet for some of that stuff now.
It's so, man, that rings so true. The notion of just having an outlet, like you just want to share it. Like it's all you're thinking about. And you're like, come on, like, let's chat. And they're like, no, like there's a million other things going on the other side of the household. So yeah, you do you. I recently kind of upgraded everything in my room here, and I grabbed Chelsea. I'm like, just look at this thing. Like it's ridiculous. Like this monitor is ridiculous. Yeah. It's as tall as Lincoln is sideways. And yeah, no, not so much there. So it is. I don't know. I feel like this is part of like the fabric of what brings us all together, and it gives us something to look forward to. I'm not sure exactly what it is that like lightens our load. It like lifts our spirits so much, but yeah, maybe it is it's all happening at the same time together. Everybody's having the same experience together, and we get to share it together. And it takes effort for that to happen. That's why I give Marcus a lot of kudos for this sort of thing, because this was just an idea. And this is one of my favorite things about doing all of this stuff is like somebody has like wouldn't it be cool if, and then you go, we do this first, and then we do this next, and then we do this next. And then we've got two awesome people from across the country engaging with people from Europe, from Australia, from the United States, like literally every hemisphere, every continent, like coming together and sharing. Like even if it wasn't that, even if it was just like me and Marcus and Tony Baker and Rybo in Calgary and Brent in Okotoks, Alberta, like that would be pretty cool as well. But it's kind of magnified and amplified by this. Marcus, where is this as like the Backtrackers is, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, is a video game book club. You guys decide a single game you're going to play over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, and then you all get together and you talk about it. Is this what you thought was going to happen when you kind of started things up with Delroy?
Pretty much, I would say. Yeah, at least this is what I envisioned. I mean, I think that I think we can go back. We can roll back the tape because we did the last We the GamerCast I was on. We had just started, and I think you had asked me, "What do you think it was going to look like?" So I think that I had said we would have probably a core group, and then we'd also have people that are kind of dipping in and out, and that's literally what it has been.
That's awesome.
So yeah, no, it's more or less how I had kind of envisioned it, I think, which is great because I'm not disappointed. So it's been great.
That's the thing is like, yeah, sometimes you can have these ideas and you hope for something and then go like they lose traction or like they're not quite what you thought. But one of the things that jumped out to me, because I got to participate in the Life is Strange True Colors one, and I was like, what the heck? Like these voices, these people who aren't on a weekly podcast have such wonderful insights. And this is my, if there's an example of why I keep saying everybody should have their own podcast, it's the Backtrackers. It's like, go listen to some of these people, man. Like their insights into this, like Drellish is like, I think he's amazing. I think he's so fun to listen to. Bowser was on an episode. Does Bowser do, Backtrackers with you guys?
She has not yet. No,
not yet.
But yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing about the Gridlock, right? Is like we had some people there that I had never met or spoken with before, and Bowser being one of them. I don't think I'd ever even talked to Robby Bobby Miller in any capacity before. I've seen his name all over the place, but so yeah, I mean, it's neat to hear these different voices from names you either know or even are new to you, and because there's some pretty they bring something to the table that you don't even hear on all of these podcasts that we listen to on a regular basis.
And that's the beauty of the backtrackers, man. Like, because everybody eventually has an opportunity to pick the game. And, I'm committed because I'm coming every time. Even if I've never heard this game, I don't think I'm going to like this game. But because of it, I'm trying new genres that I would never, ever touch. Like Boyfriend Dungeon. Like, I didn't know I like romance visual novels. I freaking love them now. Like, I was so into it. But if it wasn't for the backtrackers, I would have never touched that game. I wouldn't have touched more than 75% of these games. And I would say the vast majority of them I've enjoyed, but I've talked to Marcus and Delroy about it. Even the games that I didn't like, there are a few where I really disliked. It's still fun to come to discuss objectively, what I didn't like about it. But what you guys were saying, it's so important and so informative to hear other people's perspective when they say, well, this is what connected with me. Yeah. And I actually liked solving puzzles. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that someone would enjoy it, because I'm like, these puzzles are frustrating, or I found this aspect boring, and people are like, I found it so relaxing. I was like, oh, I wouldn't have seen it that way, because I just saw it through this very narrow perspective. I'm like, I hate these puzzles. This is making me feel stupid. Where somebody else
I've locked in my opinion, and I cannot wait to tell people about it.
That's true. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. I've messaged Delroy. I'm like, I'm gonna go up on this game, but it's just nice to hear the other perspective where it's like, these puzzles were so relaxing. It was such a cathartic experience, but led to this moment. So honestly, man, like, it's not only am I trying new games, I personally like the deadlines. I know some of our people coming have found the deadlines a bit stressful. I don't know. I guess I need something like, it's got to be done, because of that tight timeline. I'm like, I got to get this done, because I think if it was a bit too long, I'd be like, I can do it later, and then I end up doing something else. So because there's these timelines, I'm like, obviously people are still welcome to attend if they don't finish the game, but you're getting the full experience when you do finish. So I personally race and try to mainline and finish these games as fast as I can, which I'm totally fine with. And because of that, I have a 3-month-old baby, but I'm pretty sure I finished 28, 29 games already, and it's only July. And that's how much I finished on a normal year. That's what I'm saying.
That you actually answered and maybe there's other context to provide here, but I was going to ask you, Ngachacha, how you're finding that there's, a new game to be played every about a month or so, or something like that. Like, how are you finding that mixing in with what would typically be your playing games as they come out, or how is it interrupting your normal gameplay, or are you finding it just kind of adds an additional layer to how you would traditionally approach games before a book club kind of thing?
I hope this means a lot to you, Marcus and Delroy, for setting this up. So I actually prioritize the backtrackers games over the big AAA releases. I actually do. I was playing Horizon Forbidden West, but I was like, but I'm going to prioritize Chicory, because I feel like I enjoyed the big AAA games, obviously quite a bit, but I'll be honest, I actually get a lot more out of these small indie games than discussing it with this community. Even if I dislike the game, I get so much more out of it. So I actually prioritize more of those, and I'm actually playing less of what's on my backlog and what's those AAA things. I'll get to them eventually. I'm still excited for The Last of Us and Resident Evil 8 DLC, but when there's the backtrackers game that will be around the same time, I'm probably going to play those ones a bit more.
Yeah. Marcus, you're running at about 28, 29 games completed so far this year as well?
Not quite. Yeah. I think maybe 20-ish or so. I keep track of them too. So maybe about 20. Yeah.
Look at you guys.
But there's probably half of that is backtrackers. So yeah. And I think that, my pattern is obviously similar, maybe more out of necessity than Ngachacha, since I am kind of obligated to attend every and finish the games for all of these. But yeah, I think that some of the AAA games or the bigger experiences have fallen a little bit to the wayside. I prioritize the backtrackers, the smaller stuff first, and then once I knock those out of the way and I've still got some time, then I jump back in and playing Cyberpunk right now. And have been since I finished up Chicory. So yeah.
How are you liking that?
I think overall, I would say I'm probably a little disappointed. It feels more generic than I was expecting it to.
Yeah.
So it seems to be running fine. I've had a few very minor stuff playing on PS5. But the world feels maybe emptier than I was expecting it to. The quests seem pretty generic. The combat doesn't seem. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, they really hyped it up,
and I will finish it. But I haven't. I haven't.
I gotta ask you something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to answer this too, Sean. So the way you're describing Cyberpunk and your experience, it sounds like it's meh. So I'm very curious as to, because I assume you have games in the backlog. So I'm very curious, why are you continuing to play Cyberpunk? Question. And you said you're going to finish it when the impression you're giving is like, whatever.
Totally.
Well, didn't I explain the reason I already roll back the tape an hour from or whatever. You said when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So there's probably a little bit of that, to be perfectly honest. The story is good, though. The story is good. I think that there's been more of the gameplay stuff that I haven't entirely been connecting with, but I am interested to see how the story plays out.
So is that Sean, a consistent thing for you? Like, do you every time you're like, I'm going to play this game through the end? Like, are you just?
I think I'd like to think I've gotten a little bit better about dropping some stuff that isn't really quite hitting, or if I used to finish basically everything that I started. Yeah, kind of that more the PS3 era ish. I wouldn't if I had the game, I was playing it all the way through.
Yeah.
100%.
But I don't know. I think I've gotten a little bit better in that regard over the years.
Yeah. I think for me, like I've gone kind of back and forth on it. I think you're right. Like back in the day, it was like if I got a game, no matter what, even if I'm not really enjoying it, I would kind of finish it. And then podcasting and stuff kind of came into the mix as well, where I would form an opinion, having played what I felt like was enough of the game. And maybe to one of Ngachacha's earlier points, like I kind of was resting on my laurels on that a little bit too much, where it seemed like that was what was acceptable in like quote unquote the industry. Like it seems like a lot of people would play enough of a game and then they would talk about it and that sort of thing. And I would go like, I guess that's what everybody's doing, so that's what I'm going to do. And I wish I could remember which game it was, but there was one that I wasn't quite loving. And I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but I decided this particular game, I'm actually going to round it out. I'm actually going to like play all the way to the end. And then in the last third of the game, like it all kind of came together for me where I was like, oh, now I see it. Like I actually really like this game. And I came to realize that I wonder how many games I had shortchanged or provided like too much or too forward of an incomplete set of thoughts around a game because I thought I had played enough of it, thought it had shown me everything that it needed to show me. So now from a sort of like, I don't know what other word to use other than like the professional side of things. Like if I'm going to provide a critique, I really am pretty set on playing like the game, like rolling credits, whatever that happens to mean for the game. But on the fun side of things, like I'm really trying to like decide, like if I'm going to be talking about, if I'm going to be providing a review for the game, I want to be clear with everybody. I've played it, but yeah, sometimes it's hard. It's hard to play like those two different roles, I guess, when I'm playing games. How much should I stick around for them? So yeah, I kind of bounce back and forth as I go along. But I'm curious with Marcus on Cyberpunk here too. Like there's not really the end. There's not a backtrackers to talk about at the end of this. It's, I don't know, maybe it was hyped up enough. Maybe there's like, I don't even know if I've heard anything about the ending that would compel me to push through a 40-hour experience.
So maybe you guys have convinced me. I'll drop it now, but I don't know. I think that
I don't know if that was our goal, but
no, it wasn't.
So
nobody should play Cyberpunk 2077.
I'm enjoying this one enough. I think that like I don't know. I don't know really how else to say it. Like this one, it's not blowing my socks off like I think it was sold to do. And you know, even those initial reviews, the PC reviews for it were quite positive, right? In terms of everything about the game, outside of the bugs, right? So I'm hoping that maybe it does come together in that last third, because that's kind of about where I've got left. So we'll see. And the story has been good to this point. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But it hasn't blown me away as I thought it would. You know, I thought once we deal with the bugs and kind of get that all solved, that this is going to be a really, really good game. And it's been just kind of good. Meh. A little bit.
The one game I should push through, actually, speaking of making fun of my son who bounced off games too quickly, is the one that you have a poster of behind you, Marcus, Red Dead Redemption 2. I skipped off of that so fast, man. It's not, and it's one of my like day one, bought it full price, like couldn't have got it any cheaper. And no, I think I had a bug in that game when I was supposed to go like, I don't know, grab some lady on the other side of the map and put her on the back of my horse and bring her to jail or something. And then like some bug happened and it canceled all my progress. I'm like, I am not riding a horse like for 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back. Am I wrong about this game? Like, I feel like this game is a little bit divisive, and I don't know, Ngachacha, if you've played it, but Marcus, like, should I give this one another chance?
So I know where Ngachacha lands on this game too, and I think
I dropped it too.
Well, yeah, he's in your camp too, Sean. So, I loved it. Our Red Dead Redemption 2 is my favorite PS4 game. That generation of game. It edges out The Last of Us 2 for me. I loved every second of it, but I kind of get why people may not jive with it. It can be a bit slower. There's a lot of detail. The way I described it to my friend, because my friend that was visiting that I mentioned the other day, he saw the poster and he's like, "Is that good?" I was like, "It is this closest that we have today to experiencing like a Westworld sort of experience. Like you are living in the Old West. Like I really truly felt like I was there." And the story is phenomenal. I think that you can people can jive or not with the combat or the the minute to minute kind of gameplay stuff, but the story is really, 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 really good. I loved it. So I might sit here. So here, I guess the long story short, maybe give it another shot. I know
you are convincing me, man. Like I do feel like I'm missing something when you talk about it.
You've tried it a couple of times, yeah? I think
I've tried it 3 times, and I'm like
3 times, So it's not going to work for you. But if you've only given it one shot, maybe try it a second time and see if it clicks again. Because if you can kind of, I think some of it does play slower, right?
Yeah.
It's a slower playing game, and that's if that doesn't work for you, then you're not going to play a little bit longer and that problem be solved, right? You kind of have to
it only stays the same
exactly
pace. Yeah. Just is it, like 80-hour game, something like that? Like it's not exactly a short game either.
Something like that. So I have the ranking system that I have for figuring out which games that kind of are my favorites on any system or all time or whatever. How many times I call my wife into the room and say, "You've got to see this."
I love it. Yes.
And I was doing that on a daily basis with Red Dead 2.
Oh, wow.
You've got to see this. And it wasn't just the environments, which are obviously very gorgeous, but like just the something in the story or something. You've got to see this stuff. So yeah,
does this do anything for you? Like I feel like I'm gonna like drop whatever I like now that you're talking about this, Marcus. Like I can't even think of what game I've got on the go right now. I don't even know what it is. I'm just like maybe this is the one. I mean, Ngachacha, you've played this 3 times. Like there's no swaying you back to this one. I'm sure. You're done.
No, I'm done. And it's awesome that people resonated with me, and it's just one of those things like it's just not for me, and it is what it is. I've given it its fair chance, and at the same time though, I do feel like going into a game and kind of like, anything like movies and televisions, like our expectations can really change how we experience it. Like it's so hard not to go in with zero expectations with all the things on Twitter and YouTube, like you're watching the trailers. But honestly, man, like it's so, and that's kind of what's good about the Backtrackers. Like just diving in, and I have no idea what this game is about, has led to some of my most favorite games and like most powerful experiences. Like Nier Automata, I thought was just some weird sci-fi waifu game, and I was like, holy crap, that's not what this is. This is way more than that. How
can you take a shot at describing it? Because I don't know even where to start. Like it seems like this really resonated with you. Is there a way for you to describe
Strap in, Sean. He's gonna.
I was gonna say,
let's do it. Because I've played. So there's a number of different ways you can get credits in this game. I think one is if like you remove like the core chip in her, like it'll shut down and you roll credits that way. That's not what I talk about. So there's like the first playthrough, and then there's a bunch more. I've done the first playthrough. I assume that you've completed, like actually completed the game. Multiple playthroughs, different characters come in, and maybe that's what I'm missing, because like I couldn't describe what this game is about. There's robots, and then there's humans and a moon, I think. And it's been a while since I played it, but maybe I'll give you a shot. I'm terrible at describing this game.
And I learned this too, because I actually really pushed this aggressively on Marcus to play. I hounded him to play it. So I've learned my lesson that the less that anybody says about Nier Automata is better for that experience. So to keep it as vague as possible, like you said, Sean, there are multiple playthroughs. There's those joke endings, like Yoko Taro, the creative director. He's a bit of a troll. So there are those troll endings, like where like you pull the chip out, you're dead, you see the credits. Yeah. There's quite a few of them. There's only 5 real endings in Nier Automata.
Only 5.
When I say that, it's roughly, maybe like 2 or 3 real playthroughs. But, I talked about it a little bit, and I want to kind of go in deeper to it. Like, video games can give you an experience that television, movies, and books can't. And when the creative director really utilizes that to its advantage, like it's such an experience. And that's what Nier Automata is, because you can't have multiple playthroughs in a book. Like it's not, you're reading the same book. You're not, you might pick up a few new details, but that's about it. In Nier Automata, when you're playing the game again, you have these expectations of, well, I'm going to see this again. I'm going to see this again. And the creative director tricks you into this safe sense of security, only to when you get to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ending, he really turns the expectations on you. And that's what has such a massive impact on me. And I'll never forget it, man. I'll never forget it. Like when I got to ending 3, I had to put the controller down because I realized like, oh, this is where the game actually starts. Not what I saw in ending A and B. It was actually the 3rd part where I was like, this is where the climax
you guys are killing me right now, man. Like now I've got 2 games. Go play. Like I'm so impressionable. That sounds awesome, dude. Like it's this flip side of, honestly, when you first say, and when most, it's not just you, it's like when anybody comes to me and says like, this game's got 6, this game's got multiple endings, I'm like, get me the hell away from this thing. That sounds way too much. Like, what does that even mean to have multiple endings? Like, I don't understand. Like, why would I play through something? Like, I don't know. It's just, even like getting used to the term like end game for like games like Destiny 2 and things like that. I'm like, you play the game to play the end game. I still don't really understand it in a lot of senses.
I've always I think that the whole idea, and I don't know what you think about this, Ngachacha, that Nier Automata labels those as endings has done the game a bit of a disservce, because
that's what I'm getting at.
It's not the ending at all. It's almost like it's not dissimilar to The Last of Us 2, where there are different perspectives that you're different timelines that are happening, and you're playing in different perspectives, right? So it's like,
have you played it? Wait, did he actually get you to play it, Marcus?
Oh yeah.
And you just didn't. It just didn't.
No, I liked it. I did. Okay. I didn't. The combat was a tough thing for me, and like the map, but the story is phenomenal. The story is really amazing. Yeah. But he sold it hard for sure. And so I think you're going into it with this expectation that there's going to be, and it was like, oh, okay, I get it. But I don't think I was as blown away as what Ngachacha would have been when he first played it, because he didn't have that level of expectation kind of sitting there.
You're right, though. It is a disservice to label them as endings, because it is true. It's only when you get to the 5th that's the actual ending. Everything else is really like, it's just like a mini climax. Like that's not where the story actually ends. And, it makes me think quite a bit about different types of video games, how the developers will go in and they're like, we're going to hook you in this first half hour so that you're connected into it. And then there's other games like Nier Automata, and in my opinion, like The Last of Us Part 2, there's a huge ask where it's like, just keep playing and there's going to be something for you later. Even like Death Stranding, same thing. Like that game took me like 15 hours before I finally like, oh, this is freaking awesome. But 15 hours is a huge ask for me to be like, why am I doing this? This is boring, or this isn't connecting. And it's interesting how some developers will deliberately have this slow build up so that when they do reach this climactic part, it has a bigger impact. But like you said, Marcus, it's kind of a risk, because it's going to turn off a lot of people where they're like, I need to be hooked right away in that first hour. Like I want it to click. And it's great when some games do that, but not all of them do. And now you're making me regret not finishing the Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe I should have stuck it out. Now I don't know.
Mission accomplished. I've done my job tonight. Got 2 people more interested in playing Red Dead 2.
I love that we're having this kind of conversation. And now this is going to be a thing. We're going to have like multiple people on We the GamerCast more often, because I think that this is really interesting, and that like you can't ever, at least for me, I don't really ever create like a rule that I apply to every single approach to every single game. Like I don't think that I can go to every game and go, you better hook me like 100% within the first 45 minutes or I'm out. I don't know that that's fair, because to your point, Ngachacha, like there are some games where that is a tall order. They are specifically asking you to like stick around for 10, 15 hours because it's going to get good. And I think that there's an aversion to that generally, like in the Twitterverse and in the online sphere. It's like, this better be good in 2 hours or like get out. And I'm like, I get it, but I don't like being that absolute about things, I don't think. And I don't know, like generally speaking, I don't think people really like to do gray, or they don't want to do nuance. They want to apply this game is for me, this game is not for me. Like this style of game is for me. And I don't know. I get overwhelmed by choice and selection and stuff, because I have started to open my mind to, I guess, visual novels. Sure, like bring those in too. Like, because there's always going to be that one example of a game that's good in that sphere that I don't want to miss out on. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm not saying that approach is any better than people knowing what they want to play, because some of those people look like they're having a great time as well, man. Like they know what they want to play and they play it, and it looks like they're having lots of fun. So who am I to say anything different?
I don't think this is the right answer. Like it really is what you said. It is a great answer where like sometimes it is worth sticking around and sometimes it's not. Like it's finite. Like, like once I lose the time, I lose the time. Can't
I don't really think of that way. Yeah, you're right, but man, that just gave me you're right.
Sorry, but but you know what I mean? Like, as busy as we are, especially at our age with families and jobs, our free time is very finite. Do you really want to have 10 hours of meh and then, 20 hours of greatness? Or would you want to play a different game where you're getting the full experience? Because let's be honest, there's like millions of games. Like there's so much choice that it's like, surely enough, if I wanted to, I could find something that will hook me right away. But for me personally, because video games are so special, I'm willing to give most of them, not all, because I did abandon Red Dead, but most of them I'm willing to give them a fair chance because there must be something special. And they impact me in such a meaningful, immersive way that television doesn't, movies doesn't. So I'm going to do it as often as I can, like with
I think that like if you're going to kind of take the approach where you'll bounce off a game after a couple hours if it's not connecting with you, that's fine, but you have to also acknowledge that you might be missing out on some experiences that you would have otherwise really liked. And, you may be okay with that, but I think that because inevitably that's true. It
Right.
will be true that you've missed out on something that you would have otherwise really enjoyed.
That drives me crazy, man. That's exactly.
And you don't know, and that's it. You don't know until you actually kind of put in a little bit more time and kind of. I think that getting back to that Cyberpunk, why am I continuing to play? I think that might be part of it too, right? Is like I don't want to potentially miss out on something that could be something I really end up loving. So.
Do you think, and I don't know if it's possible for us to think about like 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, something like that. But like for me, I because my birthday's coming up and I'm thinking about like, I just want to sit and play some of my favorite games. So I started thinking like, what are some of my favorite games? And I've discovered this in the past before where I realized somewhere around like age 12 to 14, 15, were like, man, those were the years for me, like 1996 through 1998, something like that, where like those games will be with me forever. But you guys have sort of talked about two games, Red Dead Redemption and Nier, that are really highlights for you now. Do you think that you're still able to find and discover games that will remain with you in the future as, man, that game is one of my favorite games of all time, in the way of maybe a few games that you think back on in the past 15, 20 years of playing games? Are you still playing games for the first time, discovering new stuff that will hold up and be in that echelon of Super Mario 3, or for me, it's like Half-Life and games like that. StarCraft are definitely are games that are up there. Does that question make sense? Like when you're playing games newly, will they hold up over time as those are my favorites and I'll look back on those as well?
Honestly, I'm surprised. Like, cause I agree. I didn't think I would feel that way about certain games, but Night in the Woods I only played it this year. It's one of my favorite games of all time now.
Wow.
Last of Us Part 2 is from 2020, Nier Automata, but I think I got it from 2019. I wasn't expecting to be impacted that way. Because like you said, like when I think about like, what are my favorite games of all time? And it's like Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, and Resident Evil 2, nice. OG ones. But I think it's not just, those games are phenomenal. They're masterclasses. It's also the full experience of those games, the memories that you have with it, right? Like Resident Evil 2 is because I kept renting the PlayStation 1 because I bought an N64 and I kept renting it every single weekend. And my cousin was like, why do you keep renting this thing? Like, I need to finish this game because there's no memory card. So I'm going to finish this Resident Evil 2. And that game kind of sticks with me, Majora's Mask. But it's when I think about it now that you're saying like, do I still have these profound experiences? Well, now I have these, brand new experiences with these new games. Like I remember messaging friends when I got to the end of Last of Us Part 2 and sharing that discourse of how we felt with it. And then Night in the Woods, like the conversations that we had with the backtrackers, like I'm never going to forget those memories. And it kind of ties it all in together where, like you said, 10, 15 years, I will look back and think very fondly of Night in the Woods. Will I still play it and get the exact same experience? Maybe not necessarily, but those memories of the conversations that we had especially we were playing through it, and the conversations I had with my wife about that game, like those will always be with me. Like I don't go into games expecting like it's gonna blow my socks off and change my life, but when it does, like it's friggin' awesome, man.
How about you? I think for me it's probably even more so that I would look to the games that I'm playing now rather than the ones I played 20, 30, I guess it's more like 30, 35 years ago. Yeah. That are more impactful and more, I don't know if nostalgic is the right word, but the games that I think of when I think of my favorite games of all time, I think more of my more recent experiences. And I don't know if
I love that
speaks more to the fact that I'm probably more into video games than I've ever been. Now. So that probably plays a bit of a role there, and I've probably played more in the last, 5 or 10 years than I ever had in that period, those kind of increments kind of leading up to it. So I don't know. I think that, I look at like the Red Deads, The Last of Us 2, Hollow Knight is a big one for me. I love Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight or, these more recent more recent experiences, you'd probably consider like all modern stuff, that those are the most important, or my favorite games of all time for sure right now.
I love that so much. And this is something, of course, I overthink everything. And I don't know why this comes to mind when I think about this kind of stuff. This was probably 15, 20 years ago, whenever like Korn and Limp Bizkit and Stained were popular. And I remember Stained had like one album. Remember Aaron Lewis? Like they had like one album. And I remember bumping into somebody and she was so excited to see Stained in concert because she said, Stained is my favorite band of all time. And I thought, I mean, Stained is an interesting choice, like especially given, time is, I don't know if it's been all that kind, but I'm like, my point is, it was very soon, I felt like, to declare this band as their favorite. And years later, I was working with somebody else who was excited to see Imagine Dragons in concert because Imagine Dragons was their favorite band of all time. They had one album. And I thought, is that allowed? Like, are you allowed to declare that? Yeah. And it's so stupid that I had that kind of question. Like, of course, you should be able to. And I love what I'm hearing from you guys, that it's kind of breaking my old way of thinking. It really is an old and archaic and maybe even a gatekeepy kind of way of thinking, that you need time and distance and games have to hold up for you to declare these are some of my favorite. Like, who cares? Like, why am I building up like saying that it's a favorite game of all time? Like, who cares? Like that kind of stuff changes and you appreciate them for what they are to you in that moment. And I don't know, maybe that's just something I'm learning very late in life, to appreciate things more in the moment than overthinking them. That probably is that's a $200 appointment coming up pretty soon, I'm sure, to discover a little more about that.
I can't remember, it was a few weeks ago, I was talking to Delroy about it because he was asking, somehow we were talking about our favorite games of all time, and he was very adamant. He's like, I don't go back and play them because I'm preserved. Yeah, he's like, I'm preserving that experience because, like you said, Sean, some of these games, let's be honest, some of them are dated, they've aged, and if you're playing like a 20-year-old N64 game or PlayStation 1 game, it's probably not going to feel the way you remember it as your
maybe 13. Pick the wrong game. That's what I'm saying. Should you pick Stained as your favorite band of all time? Is that going to work out? Being a jerk.
But because he was asked, he's like, you replay them? I'm like, yeah, man, I play The Last of Us Part 1 regularly, and like it, like, does it feel a bit dated? A little bit, but it brings me back to that first time playing it and going through that intro cutscene and like those like it brings me back to it. And like for me, even though if it does feel dated, somehow it's like a time machine. It brings me back to that moment and I can totally feel it and experience it. So me personally, it doesn't, even if it does feel dated, like I'm not going back into it critically to be like, does it still hold up? It's just like, am I having fun? Am I getting this, great experience from it? And for me personally, I do, but I totally respect people who say like, nope, I gotta keep it as is. Because I feel like that way a little bit about, I feel that way a little bit about some movies from like the 90s and 80s. Like, if I watch this, am I really gonna like it still? So no, I totally get that perspective as well.
Comedies, I think, especially pretty tough to go back to. I don't know, I don't even know if I want to name any of them. I feel like Mel Brooks movies hold up, I would say. Like I think Spaceballs is still pretty good. I think Robin Hood Men in Tights. Those are some of my. Oh man, I love those movies.
I've never seen Spaceballs.
You never seen Spaceballs? Oh my gosh, that's actually okay. No. So that reminds me. I wanted to bring it back to the Backtrackers just for a second because I was just gonna say you've got to watch Spaceballs. But is there a game? I'm not going to talk about that. I wanted to ask you, Marcus, because you and Delroy lead the Backtrackers, and you do open it up to the community to kind of choose what game is going to be next. Mm-hmm. Is there a game that you would like to insert into Backtrackers for consideration? Like, okay, guys, I want you to play this game. You've already played it. You want other people to experience it. Like, even though that goes against the rules, you probably would never do that. But is there a game that you go like, this is what we should talk about as a group?
I should say that both Delroy and I have the opportunity to choose games as well. We're kind of in the randomizer. Well, we're in the randomizer. We randomly select one of the attendees. So we're always. So I have chosen several games for this, but there are games that I probably wouldn't pick for the Backtrackers for various reasons. But I do think that lots of people should play. Ngachacha is well familiar with one of them, being Puppeteer from the PlayStation 3. We got to get more people playing Puppeteer. It's good. It's a very good game.
I've never heard of that.
You've never heard of it?
It's a platformer. It's hard. It's hard. No, seriously. It's hard for me, man. Like when you say you don't persevere, I'm like, Marcus, you play stuff like Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, like those games are hard, man. And Puppeteer, because I'm like, I'm almost finished it, but like it reminds me, it makes me rage the way Donkey Kong Country did. I'm like, man, some of these jumps are hard. But it's a masterclass in terms of platforming and like visual presentation. It's so good.
Yeah.
Wow,
it's a very cute kind of I don't know, like 2D, like some of the old the single player components of Little Big Planet, like the Sackboy kind of levels, or I was telling Kevin Ainsworth, the Muffin Man.
I love that name, by the way.
That's great. I was telling him it's a little bit like the new Klonoa remake game. So that's how it plays. Very charming, very, very cute. Anyways, everybody should play Puppeteer. Another one that I really love that I probably would never choose for the Backtrackers is a game called Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom.
I know that game.
I've heard that one. Is it good?
It is phenomenal. It's so good, and basically nobody's played it. I don't know anybody.
What kind of game is it?
It's like a Wonder Boy style clone, so kind of a platformer action RPG sort of style. It's fantastic music, really good art style, hand drawn, tight controls, really good. Really, really.
Why can't we do it for Backtrackers?
It's long. It's probably 30 hours, 30 plus hours, I think, if I recall. Yeah. So we try to keep things a little bit shorter for Backtrackers. So
I feel like there's going to be like this underground Backtrackers. That's going to be you'll have like your main one everybody knows about, but you have like your Fight Club one. You're not allowed to talk about it, but that's where the secret games are played.
Yeah.
Ngachacha, how about you? If you could insert like a game that you're just like, people should play this, and it's not Nier Automata.
I was gonna say that, but it would have been Nier Automata because not enough people give it a chance. But outside of that one, the one that I like that that hurts me inside that we can't play it is Katana Zero, because that's one of my favorite indie games. But I believe it's only on Switch and PC. Like it's not on PlayStation for sure. So
it's on. I think it's on Game Pass, or at least it was on Game Pass.
Came to Xbox for at least for a little bit. Yeah, there was somebody in the community who was egging me on for that one. Let me see. Katana Zero.
So, are you giving me hope that we can do it, Marcus?
I absolutely think that's a reasonable choice for Backtrackers. Yeah.
That would be. I've played it like 3 times. I'll play it again because I just love those types of games, like Cyberpunk. Like neo noir, like detective, like, and the music is fantastic, and that game's hard, but for some reason I don't rage in that one, and I think it's because it reloads really fast, like when you die, like it goes back. Have you tried it, Sean or Marcus? Have you guys tried
played it a little bit?
No. It's a little Hotline Miami-ish. That's how I always had the except a little 2D.
Yeah, a little bit, but I'd say it's a different aesthetic, and it's a very sci-fi story, like dark, mysterious. Like, so if you're into that stuff, like it'll connect. But if you're saying I can pick it, I might pick it next time.
Yeah, I'm less strict on the. So Delroy and I have a bit of differing opinion on like eligibility for this thing, and so I am a little more open. He likes the more obscure, and I'm a little more open because I haven't played nearly as many games as he has, so I can appreciate how he wants to go to stuff that he hasn't had an opportunity to do, or that a lot of other people haven't, but I haven't played nearly as much as him, so I'm much more open and so Katana Zero sounds like a very reasonable choice for the club.
I don't know if you guys have, or if you talk to Delroy, have somebody like Delroy in your life, but that guy knows so many video games,
it's
he
insane.
so it's like every game that I've mentioned, like he's like, yeah, I played it. I'm like, oh, I've never met somebody who's played.
He's the Ryan Turford of the backtrackers.
Yeah, he's like, I've already played. I was like, wow. Yeah. And so the flip side is like he regularly recommends all these games, and he's like, it's fantastic, it's phenomenal, and I respect and value what he says. So I'm like, okay, this is overwhelming because these are too many games, but at the same time, I'm like, but now I know I'm kind of missing out on some pretty cool experiences at the same time. But it's a double-edged sword where it's like I'm getting all these wonderful recommendations of games number one, I've never heard of. Number two, I probably wouldn't have tried. But at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to chip away at the backlog.
I don't need to keep adding. Yeah.
Here's 20 more games.
Yeah, and I was like, you're kind of adding it. It's kind of stressing me out, but he has a different perspective about the backlog. It's like it's not like a checklist. It's something to look forward to.
That's a good way. That's a good flip of thinking about it. And I love like the Backtrackers it really is like a video game book club. It's really taken off that sort of format. What I'm thinking about as you guys are talking about this is like, just like when you walk into like a bookstore and it's like the staff's picks of the week or whatever, it's like, this is Audrey's picks and this is Nick's or whoever else. I would love to do that in the community. Actually, I would love to have and love to feature it somewhere. Like really the only place we post anything is like the Patreon. It's not like that's where you can put content, whether it's exclusive or not. But I would love to do that somewhere and say like, I don't know, like once a week or once a month or something, we go like, here's Marcus's like top 5 and here's Ngachacha's like top 5 or whatever it is, like the recommendations. If you're looking for something to play, here's a bunch. And I just imagine the different approaches that people would take to that sort of assignment. If you could look at it that way, like I feel like Marcus would like look at variety as an example. Like I feel like you would really look at, if you're looking for a 200-hour experience, like this is the one, or if you're looking for something short, like this is it. Like you would approach it in a different way than I would versus Ngachacha. In addition to, even if we approach it the exact same way, we would all come up with different games. So and there's no end to it. It's not like you have to play, you have to like show up for a thing. I just think that would be really cool as I continue to think of more and fun ways to just engage with the community. Sometimes it can be a podcast. Sometimes it can be like, the gridlock, I think, is proving to be a challenge even just to arrange and schedule, and I actually, it makes me think of your guys' approach, Marcus, where you just know it's going to be such and such a Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, because that's the only time zone that matters. That's very helpful, I think, for you guys. So, but yeah, I don't know if that idea, how that hits you guys, if you would want to submit, like, here's your top 5 or something like that.
If you're doing it, I would be happy to submit a list. I think it's interesting. We've covered a bunch of it between the two of us tonight already, but it would be really interesting to see where other people fall, whether it ends up being in content or just in conversation. I think
totally.
Yeah.
And that's all it would mean. Like it could be something in the Discord to spark conversation. I think that would be so cool. It could be like your favorite games. It could be your best RPGs. Like you could go genre. Like I'm really spilling out a lot of, sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much, but I'm spilling out some of these ideas to put them on tape so that we roll back to this later, because I'm not writing any of this down. But yeah, I kind of want to, every time I talk to Marcus or Delroy, like especially, it's like something like this happens, and I don't know, man.
It leads to wonderful things. It led to the Backtrackers, and you could be onto something with this. And honestly, man, like the carpool gaming community, it's really special what you guys have fostered here. And I mentioned this at one of our Backtracker sessions. It was a line about friendship from Night in the Woods, about convenient friends. Like the friends that we make, we kind of have to make them because they're geographically closer to us. But if I had access to other people, would I be your friend or somebody else? I might pick somebody else. And I feel like with carpool gaming and just gaming in general, we're kind of coming together as a community because it's convenient. Like you guys are West Coast, I'm East Coast. Like Delroy and Gerald, like they're in Germany, people are in Australia, but we meet up and talk because we're so passionate and so excited about these video games that we're meeting and we're making these friendships. So yeah, man, if you want to make something where we get to post our top 5,
I think we're going to do it.
I'm all for it. I'm all for
yeah. And it's just like what I was saying about people going out of their way to like provide positive comments or encouragement, things like that. Like people could be doing anything in the world right now. You know, like you guys could have spent your Friday evening doing anything else, but prioritizing this is really, really special. And I just love hanging out with you guys. And the fact that it invites more people in is just, it's all amazing. And I have to also, I realized that this afternoon, thinking about chatting with you guys tonight, both of you, I think, discovered, I guess, me and my content and our stuff through BadBit, through the trophy room, actually, I think. Yeah. So the point is, it actually extends way beyond just Carpool Gaming or Yumi Capri or whatever the heck it was at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, I love that there's all these different creators out there who are just everybody's friends, and then the friends like meet up and become friends. Like, it's just totally wild. So I don't know. I think we're all just kind of navel gazing a little bit at this point, but it's just neat. It's just nice. And
I should actually, I don't think I've ever told you this, Sean. So before we, I think you're going to wrap up, but like BadBit, he still does, but he used to always rag on you. And he always, like every episode, he's
it's still
telling you
happening.
that F-bomb. It's still happening, but not as often. Maybe he shifted his focus more to Luke. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So, but then he mentioned you were Canadian, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I think it was just the Canadian reference. I was like, okay, well, check this content out, and that was the connection that found me to you guys. So but yeah, I was like, he really doesn't like this Sean guy, man. He's just like F Sean all the time.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was hilarious.
And then and now look at us. Look at this stuff.
And now,
amazing.
And now we're here.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So awesome. Is there anything? You're right, Marcus. I don't want to keep you guys all night, but that we've covered a lot tonight. I'm always liking to after 2 hours or so throw it to you guys. Is there anything that like you had in mind in particular that you wanted to chat about or discuss? Like no pressure or anything, but I don't want you like walking away going, oh shoot, I wanted to talk about this, but we totally wrapped up before I had a chance to bring it up.
I'm pretty happy with everything we discussed tonight. It's been a blast, but just to repeat, like anybody's listening, if you're available on Saturdays, I highly recommend attending a backtracker session, even if you haven't played the game, or if you just want to sit in and listen. Just get in on the experience and see how special it is for, like I said, people who are just passionate about this one thing. And just sharing that passion, like I know the gridlock was set up to be like this game versus that game. I at the end of it, I was like, this was so awesome.
Yeah, we just celebrated 2 games.
To celebrate 2 games that are like are my favorite of all time. Like it was like obviously very fun to have that debate about it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, when else would I get to have dedicated hours to just go so deep into something that's so important to me? Not very often. So
yeah,
if you have the time, come check out the Backtrackers. It's really something special.
Can we find some extra Patreon money and just slide it over to Ngachacha for all this promotion that we're doing for Backtrackers right now? Or... It's been very good.
We could send him a mug or something.
Wow.
I'm good.
Well, you guys are both one to talk. Like you guys are both better kitted out than I am tonight. We got Ngachacha and a We the GamerCast shirt, Marcus in an Xbox Drive shirt. You guys look great tonight, dude.
Yeah.
Ngachacha's like, I don't like talking about sports, so I'm like, I gotta take this Blue Jays hat off, man. I don't even like baseball. What am I doing?
My goodness, did you see the Jays score? Holy hell!
I saw it. I think 23 or 25 or something. I don't know if they kept.
It was 27 when I saw.
Oh my gosh!
My goodness! Yeah.
How about you, Marcus? Are you like? Is there anything else that you wanted to like? Now that you, I'm glad you got on. By the way, I think it was very sweet, Ngachacha, of you to reach out and make sure that he got on. This was very nice, and you got to test out your new microphone as well.
My new microphone. Hopefully, it sounds a little better than the last two
sound
that
great.
I've done. No, I think that one of these days we'll do one of these in person, Sean, since we're just down the street from one another. But and we can kind of cover anything that we missed today at that point. I think we're good tonight.
I love it. Well, do you guys want to let anybody know where they can find you on the internet or anything like that? Any final plugs? Marcus, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Marcus O'Neill 79, so you can find me there. But
I love it.
Yeah. Otherwise, in the Discord.
Ngachacha, how about you, man?
Just the same as Marcus. I'm on Twitter at Ngachacha, but you'll find me in the Carpool Gaming Discord as well.
I love it. Nothing against my podcasting friends, but it is oddly refreshing to chat with a couple guys who don't have their podcasts and don't have a 45-second plug. That sounds like I'm slamming other people. It's just very, I don't know what the right word is, but it's just very nice. It's like, we're just like, you don't have to have a podcast to be on the show. You don't have to have a whole set of content and stuff. And it's like, I feel like sometimes these are even more refreshing types of conversations. As soon as I say that to like compliment you guys, I'm putting somebody else down. This is what I always end up doing. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And I hope people enjoyed our, man, we went into a billion different places. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight, guys. Okay, so you guys, a couple things on that conversation. What a supportive, like, kind of friendship we all have here. Holy crap, that's so nice, man. And number one, even for Ngachacha to extend the invite to Marcus O'Neill. You know, Ngachacha hasn't been on this show before. He didn't get a solo kind of time that everybody else gets, and he's so selfless. He wanted to make sure that Marcus got on, and I just think that's really nice. And we're all there just kind of sharing openly. Hopefully that's all. Hopefully nobody has too much regret after coming on this show. I think I commented during the conversation, like, we all know what we're in for when we jump on a We the GamerCast, or at least many of us do at this point. And hopefully there's no like, oh shoot, did I really say what I said? I'm glad that we're able to be as open as we are, and it's just nice, man. This show continues to be different. I continue to explore how it can be different, even from itself, from other podcasts and everything like that. And I gotta say, this whole like 1 and 2 people like this might be a way for us to get through and get to everybody, like, rather than feeling like you guys gotta wait 4 or 5 weeks or more to get on. Like, maybe there's a way for us to do multiples where it makes sense. You know, we'll chat about this. I mean, the Discord's a great place to do this. The links are in the show notes, of course. And We the GamerCast, usually it's what I love about this, and I encourage you guys to do this as well, is when guests are on and people have enjoyed the show, they'll tag them in the Discord, they'll tag them on Twitter and everything, and that's kind of the best. So I think we're gonna do something there. I think we're also gonna do this, like, your favorite games, like the bookstore idea. I'm very excited. I've got to talk to Ryan and everybody about how that's exactly gonna show up. But I've got some ideas, man. I've got some ideas, and I love that. Like, let's just celebrate games. Let's learn about what other people's preferences are. And these guys have me thinking about going to Red Dead Redemption 2 and Nier Automata. I'm curious if you are thinking about those games or others. Tell me what, like, there's lots to discuss, lots to break down. If you haven't already, on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/carpoolgaming. I love the live play-by-plays. Those are some of my favorite comments. People will, as they're watching or listening, just like respond and things. So do that. I appreciate you guys very much. Support us at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. Special thanks to Josh Stapleton for this yet another clip of my good friend Bobby Pauls, the late great Nintendo guru. This is him and Justin Masson talking about the Nintendo Switch just after it was announced and revealed. Did they do a good enough job? This is what I loved about Bobby.
What is up, everybody?
It's a
Bobby
great
here,
clip.
the Nintendo guru.
Enjoy. I'll see you guys
by the
next
best
week. Bye-bye.
Dad of all the world, a Nintendo dad, Justin Masson. Today on Nintendo Talk, did Nintendo do enough to sell the Switch? Justin, you're back for another episode of Nintendo Talk, and, you know, there's been a lot of talk lately. Was this enough to move the Switch? Did Nintendo do enough? It's your turn. Go.
Okay, full disclosure, first and foremost, I did order a Switch, so I'm going to be transparent, okay? I ordered it. I have a show that's Nintendo-based. I have to play this thing. I have to order it. Now let me tell you my honesty. Did Nintendo do enough to sell the Switch? I think they've pre-sold or sold out, so they've done enough to sell Switch. Did they do the right things to sell the Switch? That, sir, is the ultimate question here. I don't think they did the right things to sell the Switch. I don't think they put it at a price point that is affordable and like is at that impulse buy stage that we saw the Wii at several years ago that made the Wii such a success and was allowed Nintendo to come back and easily take that marketplace for the casual gamer. I don't think they have their accessories, and what I'm saying by that is the Joy-Cons and the extra controllers at a price point that, again, is impulse buying to be able to set someone up. And the biggest failure, Bobby, is the fact they did not pack in a game that sells this console. Remember how much we all loved Wii Sports? There's a reason for it, because you understood what motion control did. You gave it to your mom, you gave it to your grandma, you're all bowling, you're having a great time, it's a party game. Everybody loves the Wii, and I don't think the Switch has put itself, and Nintendo has not put the Switch at a spot which is reasonable for a family to easily access it and to really move forward at it. Zelda will move the system, absolutely. That was the right play to put Zelda there, but I don't think it did enough to grab its casual gamers to come back to the system and put down their money. Bobby, what do you think?
I think that, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I truly do feel like after the conference, I was buying this thing regardless. Going in, I had three things that I needed to know. 1, price. 2, release date. 3, can I pre-order? Nintendo answered 2 out of 3, and eventually they answered the third later on that night. I was always in the idea of, like, if this thing is priced $250 to $300, I'm buying it. $250, I'm buying 2 without a blink of an eye. $300, I was able to still afford 2 at a blink of an eye. If it went higher, I was like, there's no way, they're DOA. I do agree that, like, the pack-in is going to hurt them. I feel like they should have done something, but right now it's the Nintendo faithful that are buying. They can sell 2 million of anything with a blink of an eye just because people they're Nintendo faithful. They're going to buy whatever Nintendo puts out. This was enough for Nintendo fans to buy. I don't feel it was enough to sell to the people that aren't the hardcore Nintendo fans. That's not me. Like, they sold me before they even talked about anything that day. That said, in that conference, I felt like they missed a lot of opportunities. They didn't spend enough time on the online functionality. They didn't talk about Virtual Console. They didn't talk about cloud saves. They didn't talk about the power of this console, which ultimately is not that big a deal. But they didn't do the major thing that I feel is the most important thing of what this thing does. They didn't talk enough about games and third-party games. They sprinkled in some games about Joy-Con controllers and glasses of ice and all that, and that's all cool. That's all techie and all that stuff, and that's awesome. But I felt like this console plays games. Where are the games?
Yeah, and I got a couple questions for you here, Bobby. We've talked about before the Canadian exchange rate, which is horrible, right? I've told you essentially that for me to pick up a console, 2 spare Joy-Cons, and a game that I am near 600 Canadian dollars, right? Would you have dropped $600 USD for what I got?
It would have been a very hard sell for me.
Yeah.
I would have really had to think about it long and hard before I did. And that was my main thing. Like, I definitely knew I was going to try to buy one day one. If it was priced at $300, I was like, there's no doubt about it. $400, I had to look at it. I really did. And I would have had a harder time if I was in your shoes or any one of my Canadian friends that had to make that decision. To me, it was a no-brainer. It was like, $300, I got it. But I can see why people that lived in Canada struggled a little bit, because that's a big pill to swallow, honestly. But for me, when I look at it and I go, well, look, I can play this thing at home. That's a Wii U. I paid $350 for my Wii U. I could take it on the road. That's my 3DS. That cost me $200. Actually, my 3DS, my original one, cost me $275 or something like that. So when I look at that and I go, that's a $500 console for $300. I'm going for it.
Sure.
So when you look at that, and I look at like a PS4, a PS4 Pro that's $400, I'd rather buy this over a PS4 Pro because of the ability to take those games on the go. So for me, that's when I looked at it. I was like, when I was looking at it, I was like, home, go, I'm sold. And that's basically where I was at.
I will be interested to see the sales numbers of this thing after after this kind of immediate gap that we've had. Obviously, we talked about, I think they are now sold out. The 2 million copies that were sent, or the 2 millions are pushed out of the stores. Pre-orders, I think, are basically sold out, which is what Nintendo wanted by the end of March 31st. But what does the life cycle look after this? Has Nintendo done enough to sell the average consumer that this is in their price range? It is something unique for an experience, and why they need to put down money other than what a PS4 is or an Xbox, which are cheaper and has more content at the ready. And I think that's the challenge Nintendo's going to sell. Will it sell in Christmas? Absolutely, it will. Right, you put a Mario Odyssey right before Christmas with this game, like just start making the Mario money rain is what's going to happen there, pretty much. But they have to position themselves. They need to tell a better story, and that's really up to Nintendo at this point to do.
So let us know in the comments below, do you think that Nintendo did enough to sell the Switch? Did you pre-order a Switch? We're very curious. Let us know. Follow me, Twitter, at Nintendo Gurus. Follow Justin, at Masson23. That is all. See us later.